So after sea control, we went for strategic redeployments. Oh, sorry, there was a little bit of diplomacy. Finland got knocked down with Germany by the Russians. They've got a lot of BRP to spare for that. So looking at SRing, the British, I think they were first. They pulled from Italy, and they put that one into Portsmouth. They should have moved this one down from Scapa Flow, but actually they just forgot to. The French, well, they shifted a 3-4 and a garrison from France, and that ended up going across the channel to Plymouth. And then the Russians, well, they decided that the aircraft would be better off over the North Sea, thinking there might be an air battle there again next turn. So they sent 10 of their attack, and that went via Gorky, and in by Scapa Flow, and then it landed at Rosyth. And they sent, here we go, a couple of Russian infantry. So that Russian infantry, that weakened the Russian front, but it's much more important to have it in Britain now and forming a solid front there. So there was a good strong front in Britain now. And really once we got to that stage, I was beginning to feel that Britain would be safe for the turn now. After SRs, we went on to the offensives. The first offensive was a British offensive. I could have used it in Britain, because there were a couple of infantry corps in Newcastle that could have snuck down to Manchester and then maybe had a pop at Birmingham. But in the end, I decided that we would just move this one here in Sicily, and it ends up in the toe of Italy. So Sicily's been completely conquered now, and we've still got a total of 12 Allied strength points in the whole of Italy. So when it came to her surrender roll, she had a surrender roll of 6. She failed that, so she did surrender in the end. After that, there came German centre offensive, which is over here in Russia. Well, he was a little bit cagey because he was down to negative BRP after raiding. He was down to -7. So he pulled back a little bit just to make sure that his retreat path couldn't be cut off. A little bit of cowardice on the Germans' part there. Well, maybe it was wisdom really. And the other thing that he did is he has armour in position to reel out maybe going to the Western Front next turn, and that'll be spring, probably going to be muddy in Russia, half a chance of that. Then there came the Russian offensive. Well, they of course took up the slack, and then they attacked here and there, and when it was all said and done, there was one German corps dead, and the Russians advanced 1 hex. But they didn't push it too far, just in case they got beaten up next round. Though again, there's not much to worry about next round because it'll be mud. Then there came the French GHQ, and they made a push into Belgium. That's quite important. They killed off a British unit because they can't stack with each other. And really that was quite a risky move, although I knew that the Germans didn't have any headquarters offensive anymore, only attritions. So I didn't think he could have reached Paris or even got adjacent to it. So that knocked back 1 panzer there, and these guys advanced with a little bit of loss. And then this one I attacked as well, and then I realised I didn't dare to occupy it because that would have weakened the defence of Brussels. And Brussels, of course, would have meant 15 extra BRP for Germany at the start of next year. Then there was British GHQ offensive. I looked at it and I was a little bit worried because sorry, that one came around here. This one came around here. When I looked at it, I decided I couldn't actually afford an attack into Madrid. So Madrid had built, that only been the only production of the Axis. Madrid had a couple of 2-3 infantries in it, and it got air power over the top. And I thought I would just be taking losses because Britain was down to 0 BRP left at this stage as well. It had been BRP losses to the carriers that had taken her to that. So I just moved up to Madrid, and it zonked all round, so that's bad for his supply situation, but it was him to go shortly anyway. Then came the German offensive in Britain, and they really haven't got much hope because, of course, they're out of supply. He could have pushed down towards Portsmouth. He could have had a shot at London, but he pretty much guessed that I'd got 2 garrisons there and he wasn't going to get it. So he tried to take Newcastle instead. So the 2 panzers went up there, but of course there were 2 infantry corps in there, so he just bounced off. He took a hit, I took a hit, but he's out of supply, so one of his panzers is going to die at the end of the turn. Next up was, that was a British attrition. Well, I was sort of stuck in place. I couldn't get past the panzers from Newcastle round to Manchester or Birmingham, so I was going to still have 3 cities which he held. However, he'd SR'd out his paratroopers. There we go. Which is about all they can do when they're unsupplied. And that'll save them from dying out of supply at least. But that meant that he wasn't actually occupying a city in Britain. So there will be no surrender or die roll for Britain. So bearing that in mind, the British had a little offensive here. And they attacked into Wilhelmshaven. Because the Germans had no BRP and it was a garrison, it died when it took 1 hit, and the British advanced off their beachhead and into Wilhelmshaven. Again, that's quite important because that limits the amount of tack they can base on the North Sea next turn, and he's only going to have 4 coming back from the last air battle. But with his New Year's production value, he could have stuck 20 tack there, more if he'd built airfields as well. Well, there was only 2 offensives left. There was a German offensive, attrition offensive down here in the south, and he pulled back like this. So he was trying to surround, and he moved out from Madrid. Oh, sorry, this headquarters had come up to here. So he moved out from Madrid, and he left only air units in Madrid itself. So there was little pockets of British and French troops around Zaragoza, and they were out of supply theoretically at the moment. The attack he used, he killed off the headquarters, and that's just an automatic kill. But he chose not to advance out there. I think he was still trying to maintain his pocket. Well, that just left the final French offensive. So this corps here came into Madrid, and that's disaster because the Spanish, of course, are going to surrender. They can't swap sides. The 2 panzers there, well, they were in a pretty tricky situation. They had no supply line because the Germans, the Allies had been through all their ports. Barcelona had been captured earlier. Sorry, Cartagena was still. So this one had to flip out. That one was okay. That one was down as well, wasn't it? Because it had no port to trace. So a bit of disaster for the Germans down there in Italy and in Spain, and a complete reversal for them in Britain, where they had been about to cause Britain to surrender, but in the end it's turned into a trap for them. So at the end of the day, the Axis player surrendered, and I can pretty much see why. Thanks to John for a good game.